Good evening, and welcome to not another episode of Splattercast, but a review of Jordan Peele's latest film, Nope. We've been anticipating this for quite a while. I know a lot of people have. He is definitely a mind that when a movie comes out for him, people get excited ever since Get Out, which was definitely a big breakout surprise hit. Here's a comedian coming out who's known for Key and Peele and all his funny stuff, and he just comes out and kills it with a horror film, and he has just kept it going. So, very interesting here. Luke, how are we feeling about Nope?
Well, going into this, I mean, we talked about it on the Sunday Scaries where we were kind of worried about this trailer and were they showing too much? And
Mm-hmm.
we were really hoping going into this, they didn't show their whole hand. And I thought maybe they were kind of keeping something back from us, something more to offer. And I will say, leaving the theater, you definitely get that feeling of, they didn't tell you everything in that trailer, and you came out feeling like you were surprised in certain instances. So I'll say, overall, I thought this was a very unique film.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Unique is definitely a key word here. I feel like we use that word a lot on this channel,
Yeah.
but we've just been talking about a lot of interesting and unique stuff. Personally, I think that my fears were definitely not validated, which was nice because I was definitely also worried about them showing so much in the trailers. Because, like, first trailer, you really have no idea what this is about. That second trailer, they kind of start showing you that this might have something to do with a little bit of sci-fi. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, it looks like there's a UFO going around in there. So it's kind of like I would say that, you go in there with expectations, but there's so many more layers to it that it does make for a very rewarding experience to an extent.
Yes,
I
to an
think
extent,
I
100%.
think what I'd like to kind of just throw out there is that I think that this movie is very strong until about the third act, and I would even say just till about the middle to the end of the third act,
Yeah.
which is a bit disappointing. Yes, I think that it does kind of flounder in its resolution. And we had talked outside of the theater. There was a couple of choices that they made involving what the actual thing that's going on is, because I don't want to give away too much right now. That could have been done a little better, or was just a little confusing on how or why they did it this way.
Yeah.
And I do want to throw out front that I don't think, especially driving home, thinking about this, I don't think I can classify this as a horror movie. This is more of a thriller. I would say a science fiction thriller. And that's how I would classify it. So if you're going in expecting a pure horror film, don't, because this is definitely not pure horror. There are some very horrific and horror elements to it, especially one section that I want to talk about in spoilers that I think was very effective. But I can't sit here and say that this is a horror film.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. It teeters where it's like, you walk that fine line and you can either fall in that realm of horror or things like science fiction or the thriller, they kind of they teeter in that horror realm, but I think you have to meet a certain quota to actually be defined as horror. And I don't think Nope meets that. Now that doesn't mean that it's a bad film or anything. I
Mm-mm.
don't think it is a straight up horror film. It's got the horror elements of you know uh that we see in some horror films, but it's not like straight up basic horror at all. So it is more so a science fiction. So I think you kind of have to go in knowing that and not really sitting down in that theater thinking I'm going to get a black phone or something like that where it's not in that same ballpark at all. So you have to be ready for that.
Yeah, and I think like you made a great comparison to this where and I know this one of the examples I'm going to throw up here kind of gets tossed around as horror, but like it also kind of plays in its own kind of a ballpark. But when we got out of the theater, you compared this to Jaws.
Yes.
And I think that's a very accurate comparison because there are moments that feel a little bit more actiony, a little bit more adventurous, but then there's also great moments of tension. One specific scene that I can think of was just to kind of reference it. It was a scene involving the rain and Daniel Kaluuya's character. And I thought that was very well done, very Spielberg. I'll make a deeper reference to that in spoilers at the end here, but yeah, I think that you can really see the wider scope that this movie has that Jordan Peele is finally kind of getting to. Because, I would say Get Out, very contained, very small horror film, very cerebral, a lot going on there with its message. Us, a little bit bigger, and you can kind of see like a gradual build here. But I gotta say, it's awesome to see Jordan Peele kind of really get to play with bigger tools and a bigger concept and really run things. Something I was curious about when we saw the film is this was definitely, and I think it says right on the bottom there. I didn't even realize that when I picked the background a few days ago. That this was definitely some of these shots were shot with IMAX cameras, and you can
Yes.
really tell, especially in those scenes at night. Like I would say that some of my favorite stuff is just like the night sequences. I think that there's some really beautiful uh, moments there. I think of one in specific towards the beginning that really I was just like, that's unsettling. I like that a lot. And I just overall think that you can really see the level up that Jordan Peele has, where like he's starting to get more comfortable. He is starting to kind of make his own way as a filmmaker and branch out a little bit. He's not just playing in the horror realm anymore. He's okay with telling a little bit more of a thriller, a little bit closer to like a Close Encounters of the Third kind of a story. And that's encouraging. I think that, he is somebody that, when he does decide to fully branch off from horror, I think he's going to swim. I think he's going to have a lot to offer us as a filmmaker as his career continues.
And like you're saying, that level up, you can definitely see it here. I think all of Jordan Peele's films are gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
In some form or fashion, but you can definitely feel. Nope feels more grandiose. It feels very big, and that's what I was getting during these trailers, where I was like, I don't know if I'm on board with such a big film from Jordan Peele. Like for me, he's always excelled at the more of a contained story, and this one, even from the trailers, just felt so big. I don't know if it was because of that whole, aliens perspective, like that's what we're gonna go with here in these themes. So it already feels big. So I don't know if that's where it was coming from, but you could already tell that this was a way bigger film than what we had seen in the past. So I do think that this there's so many shots in here are just absolutely gorgeous. You're talking about the night scenes where it's like, you have to play that very carefully in terms of, it's night, so you can't really light. It has to be night. So it's like you really have to be able to show that off. And I think he did the shot compositions a lot of times in just when they were outside, I think is very beautiful. So I think he put a lot of thought into making this film feel big, but also show some of those smaller roots that he has had in these past films. So it does feel different, very science fictiony, completely, more so than the other two. We'll get into the other ones eventually, but Get Out, I feel, is a little more science fictiony as well. Us is the one that I feel like is a pretty horror based for the most part. But yeah, this one was interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the cast as well
I
because
was just about to get into that. Yeah, because
because,
that's
I mean, that was such a big selling point just from, the as soon as this had been announced as to, like, who he was working with and the kind of, usage he put these characters through, because it's a well thought out cast. I don't think there is, one person in this whole cast that doesn't really shine.
no, everybody is really strong. And I mean, like, I I know that a lot of people are gonna say that Kiki Palmer stole the show. I think that she is a great juxtaposition between her and Daniel Kaluuya, just playing brother and sister here, where she is definitely more of that extrovert kind of like, you know, uh, I am the talker, my brother is kind of the business side of things, is the way their relationship kind of works. But like, God, I'm such a Daniel Kaluuya fan. Like everything from his smaller part in Sicario Get Out, Widows. I mean, like he is just so versatile. Even in isn't it Judas and the Black Messiah? Is that
Yes.
the
Yep.
yeah, fantastic, dude. Like honestly, like I love how much this guy can present and just make you understand and see what's going on. You can see all the wheels turning in his head without having to really even say anything. He is
Yeah.
such an expressive and emotionally like apparent actor that like it's just awesome to see him really lead this film. And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily even say that he's a co-lead, but like it is one of those things where it's like from my perspective where Kiki Palmer's kind of selling it with her, dialogue and her character and the way she's written, and she's really playing that up. He is really selling that emotional side because you can really see the turmoil that he's going through certain events towards the start of this film, and it really carries him throughout the movie. And even everybody down to I don't remember his name, but the guy who was the tech guy from Fry's who helped them out, great.
Yeah.
I thought he was excellent, both with comedy and with just kind of being that, kind of like dude who just kind of tags along. He sort of self inserts himself into their adventure. And just everybody. I think you're right. This was a wonderfully cast film and everybody got time to shine and they all brought their A game. And like, I think that's one of the biggest highlights I can give this movie. Even Steven Yen, just wonderful. Like, I loved his character. There's a lot that they do with his character involving the opening sequence that you have a theory on. We're going to have to talk in spoilers, I would say, but
Yeah.
yeah, he also does a really great job of selling his character.
Yeah, and because I think everyone's gonna go to Kiki Palmer because of how much of an extrovert she is. So that's gonna be the default of like, oh, she's still the show, which she's great, 100%. But I think there's a real art to Daniel Kaluuya's aloofness almost, where it's like he does show that emotion, but it's not over the top emotion. It's
No, it's
almost just a
perfect.
look. Um, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. Even in his well, we're gonna get into spoilers, but even into those moments of tension later on in the film, where he figures something out and he doesn't play any of that over the top when that threat is right there beside him. He doesn't play it over the top because he knows the circumstance. And it's just like I think there is such an art to that where it's so believable because he is not playing it over the top, and I think that dynamic between Kiki Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya just works so well.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you're going to Stephen Young. Stephen Young is just like um, again, he's never over the top with anything, but it works so well. He's such a likable character. Even if like they try to spin him as to almost as someone you don't like that much, in terms of maybe he's a threat to the ranch or something, you still end up liking him no matter what. It's just I think it was all just so perfectly casted.
He sells his trauma very well in this, I would
Yeah.
say too. Like I think he gets some quieter moments too. Very brief. Like he's not in the movie as much as I would probably have liked him to be, but when he is in it, he is giving it his all. Another brief performance, gotta mention him, Keith David. I mean, he's in this film, not like I guess you can kind of tell from the trailers very briefly, but
Yeah.
he's wonderful. I mean, like he adds some moments, some key moments to it. But really, I think like if I walk out of this film, and we'll get into spoilers here in just a second, but kind of my wrapping up thoughts for you is I recommend seeing Nope. I think that it's a good time at the theater. It's going to leave you guessing. Do I think that the ending could have been stronger? Yes. Do I think that it lacks a little bit in just kind of where we end, like where the crescendo happens? I do. I don't necessarily think that it sticks the landing as well as I would have liked to, but I will say that the journey is worth the price of admission. I mean, just the tension, everything, the misdirects, it all works. And these performances are top notch, and the directing is just impressive. So, and I think that, this pairing between Daniel Kaluuya and Jordan Peele, I think that if he casts him in every single one of his movies, it's a match made in heaven. The two obviously love working together, and they do it so well. He can really pull a performance out of Daniel that I was just blown away by. Like because he's just such, and I keep harping on it because I think it is my favorite part of this movie. But like he is, he says so much without saying anything at all.
Yeah. And I think Jordan Peele knows how to direct that so well, and that's why they work off each other. It's so symbiotic almost. I feel so. It's like Daniel Kaluuya. He has great performances all over, but when he is teamed with Jordan Peele, I mean, they know how to read each other, and Jordan Peele knows how to make use of his acting so well that everything that he does is so memorable. It's funny that we just did Sinister, Sinister for the Splattercast, and where we talked so highly of that film, and then maybe like the last 10 minutes,
I thought
it's not
about
the
that.
positive.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think this is the same instance where it's like we speak so highly of Sinister. Again, nope. Um, the ending doesn't really work for me. That last maybe 20 minutes, I don't think necessarily works for me. But overall, it's an extremely enjoyable film. It's a great thrill ride. Going to that rain scene, that whole night right there is just, it's so tension filled. So it's like there's a lot of great things in here. There's a lot of great character development, a lot of things that people can study, or you can just sit down and enjoy for 2 hours. So I think this is definitely worth checking out. Definitely in for a science fiction film. But it's a lot of fun. It is a ride, even if that ending doesn't stick.
Yep. So I think now would be the best time to hop on the spoilers. So if you haven't seen Nope, go ahead and check out now and come back to us after you have seen the film. I definitely think that I wouldn't go into it knowing any of this stuff, depending on what we actually get into. Because obviously, I think this might be another one at some point down the road we might throw on Splattercast, just because I think that there's some really key moments, some imagery that sticks with me. And I'm just going to get right into it. Is it Gordy? The monkey, or
Gordy, yep.
Gordon, one of the
Gordy,
two. Gordy. All right,
with a
so this
Y.
film opens up with a chimpanzee that has just freshly mauled somebody on a set, for like a sitcom,
Very
and
strong
it's
opening.
fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's so visceral and so brutal. And I could see a lot of people having issue with some of this because it's like, well, how does this tie into the main theme, the main storyline? And you had a really good point on that of just how it ties into the whole aspect of predators because
Yeah.
like they do harp on, and I guess since we're in spoilers, we can say so basically, what we're dealing with is not aliens, but an alien UFO. But
Yes.
the UFO is the alien. So it's like it is the predator. It is a monster. It's territorial, as they
It's
keep
a
saying.
living organism.
Yeah, which is unique and cool and works through almost the entirety of the movie. But then the third act, they just get so big with it. And I think mostly it comes down to the design for me that I didn't like. I just thought it was kind of, it's abstract, but it's like you said, it looks like something in an Alex Garland movie. I
Yes.
100% agree with that. I think that that's definitely in his wheelhouse of what I'd expect there. I just think like it's not enough because especially because, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I just don't want to
That's fine.
run too deep into this. But like in that scene where he sucks up all the people at Stephen Yen's amusement park, and you
Yeah.
see them getting sucked up into it, and them just getting crushed to death. Like, what great imagery! That and the Gordy stuff, both of those horrifying. Literally, that's where you get I would say the most horror, and when it's raining blood. But we did see that in the trailer, which I'd say is the one thing I would say I was upset that they showed in the trailer,
Yeah.
seeing it on screen. But yeah, go ahead. What are some spoilers for you, Luke? What are some moments that you want to discuss?
Well, going into the ending scene there, and I guess why necessarily doesn't work for me. I think they showed too much there. Where, after the credits were rolling, I mentioned I turned to you and said, I mean, did you think it was kind of void of tension in the last 20 minutes of it? And it's going back to the comparison to Jaws, and I think Jaws works so well because Jaws is concealed by the water for a lot of it. So he attacks, he goes underwater, you don't know where he's going to be until he pops up right next to you. So that is very scary for people. Where this one, where I don't know if it was meant to be like Jaws, but in the sky, and that kind of kind of takes attention out of it because if you're looking up at the sky, you have such a wide range in your vision to see where this thing's coming from. It isn't played like how Jaws can be played, so it's like that tension for me wasn't really there. And then once you get to that point where this alien force is in the sky, changing shape and growing and growing and growing, it's just like okay, it's right there in front of you. So to me, that's where I really lost it. Where it was like, okay, we're just kind of getting into some sort of kind of art house ending here, and I don't know necessarily if that hit for me, especially when you the way that you were talking about the way this opens, where Gordy, the chimpanzee, working on a TV show on a TV set, has just freshly molded somebody, and I think that's such a strong opening and I think that's a compelling opening as opposed to maybe a more flat ending, you know? So
Yeah,
it's very, very different in terms of how we start from one place and then get to another.
I think you're absolutely right that they do show too much because like when this the sequence in the rain that I was talking about, really I compared that to another Spielberg flick. A lot of Spielberg references in this movie for sure. You could tell he's
Yeah.
definitely bringing a lot of that in here. But Jurassic Park with the T Rex scene breaking out of the compound, so much like that when he's in the truck and you hear the noises. I absolutely adore the sound design in this movie.
Yeah.
From every second, like just from the moment the film starts, because all the sounds with Gordy when he's like munching on the girl's face and the smacking and the hitting, it's like you really feel all that, but then all the
Yeah.
sounds that this alien, this monster makes is just so great. And like I think that those are some of the best moments when we're only seeing flashes and glimpses here and there. Once they kind of show the whole thing and it's just kind of out and about in front of us, it's just kind of unimpressive. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's grandiose, but it does deflate all of that tension, and that's the biggest issue with the third act. I mean, I think we can agree on that. It's just I just wish that it was a little bit more subtle
And
in the way it portrayed it.
I know we're getting into a review, but I just want to pose a question here real quick. Funny enough, me and you were talking about AVP Requiem.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about it being such a dark film. Actually, watching it, it's a dark film. While where this one, we just commended the night scenes in this, where you can actually see a lot. So would this have been a more tension filled ending if it had taken place at night, like how it was during that rain scene where it was like we'd only catch glimpses if it was lightning or, right above you and you wouldn't know that it was coming.
I think
I don't
so. I
Yeah,
think
so
that
it's
could
like
help.
I think that could have worked out a lot better than just broad daylight.
Because it is such a broad like expansion of this UFO where it's got all these like tendrils and like all these different like molding and forming box like kaleidoscope like heads and stuff. And it's just like, I think if they were shrouded in some darkness and a little bit of rain, I think that it would have played better, it would have been scarier.
For
But
the
yeah, I
horror
think
element, I
just
think it would
yeah,
have worked.
I think just seeing so much of it in your face, just all the details and like really going from the whole movie almost being like, only seeing glimpses, even when it attacks the people at Stephen Yen's amusement park, it's still shrouded by the cloud for the most
Yes,
part. So it's like we can only see so much. And
and it
like we
happened so
get really
quick.
quick glimpses where we see it coming down in full. That all works for me, but it's just like once you kind of let the genie out of the bottle, you lose some of that magic.
Yeah. And then one of the things I do want to commend it on, not the most original idea, but I think it is played off so well here, is the idea of losing power when it is near. I think that's always a
They did
great.
a really good job with it.
Yeah,
I think
it's
they
such a
they
great
had a lot of
element.
good ideas.
And again, I think that would have played even better at night because it's like, you don't know it's close until you start losing power. But the way they did use it every time, I think was so well done because they played it where it had to be so close to you, like you would lose power when it was on top of you. So it's like by the time you're figuring that out, it's just too late. So it's like my favorite spot to do that was at Jupiter's Claim when they're doing the lasso show and the icy machine and everything finally loses power and it's like okay now and then like the next frame is just them being sucked up into this alien force, you know. So I think that was so well done in a lot of instances where they're playing with the I don't know what they're called, the inflatable guys that that
Mhm.
you see in car dealerships and stuff like that. I love that usage of everything. So there was a lot well done like that, kind of pretty well thought out, I feel.
I agree. But yeah, I guess unless you have any more points to make here, I'd say that's about it on Nope. I still give this a recommendation, even if I think the third act is weak, just because it does, like you said, lose a lot of that tension. I still think it is worth checking out. Definitely worth checking out in a theater. I think that sound design and just that tension that you get throughout the film works so well and just plays up a lot. One thing that I did forget to mention that I thought there's a specific scene in which I'm not going to spoil all of it, even though we're in spoilers, um, where we see something in a barn and you think the film is going in one whole direction here, but they don't commit to that. I thought that was a very well executed scene because you see him go over, do a task, come back, turn around, and you almost it just plays a mind trick with you. At least for me, I
Yeah.
was like, "Was that there? What is that? Was that there before? Or was it not?" And then when it reveals itself, it's like, "Holy shit!" Like that's just very well done. You can tell that Jordan Peele has an eye for horror. I just think that with this story, he definitely wanted to pull back on that and make it more of a science fiction thriller. But a recommendation nonetheless.
Yeah, and it's very much a science fiction epic, I feel, where it's like a little bit big for me, for my liking, I think. I mean, it's well done, but again, going back to that opening scene with Gordy the chimpanzee, and if you would have focused on, you can he has such a really great knack for contained horror like that, you know. So it's like when you see that, when it's straight up horror, you know he has such an eye for it. In this one, I don't feel like he committed fully because he was more uh he had more attention to the science fiction detail, which is totally fine. So if you're going in expecting the science fiction portion of this, this film is definitely for you. I would recommend this even with that last 20 minutes. I think this is definitely worth a watch. Jordan Peele always has great stuff in his spruce through his films. I mean, like we're doing this fresh off a first review, a first viewing here, so it's like, there's so much. I know with us with Get Out, there's always like weeks upon weeks of, oh, did anyone catch this or did anyone catch that? There's so many Easter eggs in these films that we're just doing this fresh off of viewing. It's like we could be missing, a
A
handful of different
lot, and
things. So
I anticipate that. I want to see the analysis videos. I just can't wait for this to come back out. I probably wouldn't go to the theater to see it again, just because of time and everything. But
yeah,
I am anticipating it coming out on Blu-ray. It's one that I will pick up, probably just to have because I have the other two, and then just I would see myself watching this every once in a while. But like I said, I think just like because I think there's a lot of bright and great moments and a lot of stuff I really want to rewatch and feel that terror again, especially the Gordy stuff.
yeah.
Like really well done. I almost just want to see a movie about a chimpanzee that goes crazy on a set. Like
You
after
know,
seeing this,
And, like, not verbatim this, but I had always thought about, like, that type of trauma going into it, especially working with animals on set and things like that, that you hear stories like that, would have been so interesting to kinda develop that, and, it's not the movie we got, but I think Jordan Peele taking that little granular idea like that and expanding upon it, I think would have done so. I think would have been a tremendous film if you would have unpacked that in long form.
I agree. But yeah, guys, that about wraps us up for our review of Nope. Definitely check this one out. It's a lot of fun. Not necessarily a pure horror, but definitely a great science fiction thriller. If you guys are interested in keeping up with us, we can find us on Twitter at SplatterCastPod, as well as commenting down below on the video here. Um, like Luke mentioned, we just had our last episode of Splattercast go up on Monday. It was Sinister, so definitely check that out. Show that some love. It's pretty long video. We also will be coming back with the Sunday Scaries this week, as always. And yeah, you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, and Amazon Music for all of your Splattercast and horror podcast needs. But yeah, I guess until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And have a good one, guys.